Yes. Welcome to the Acrew webinar. And normally we would introduce our partners who've got all this knowledge and all these stories to tell, but we also have a story to tell. And don't we, Abby? We've got a big story to tell. It's emotional, but it's also what it's all about. It's about, in our opinion, longevity, right? Crew longevity is the key thing for yachting. We believe, and we believe
Yeah.
we can be a very important role. And I think that's also what we want to talk with you about, because we did a lot of research. I mean, we used COVID to not to reinvent ourselves. I don't think that would be fair, because I think we already have done a great job for the past 10 years. I think we were trying to see what we could add within our values and within our vision. And for the people who don't know our vision, our vision is to be the global leader in skill development for the heart of the superyacht industry, our captains and crew. That's what we stand for. And that's what we strongly believe in. We strongly care about crew deeply. But we also noticed that longevity on vessels is quite a challenge. Eh? I mean, if you look at crew turnover, you know that, right? There's four reasons for high turnover. Yeah?
Hmm.
And I think we were going to touch base on that, right? What we found out, what we researched, and then how we think what a solution could be and where we could help. And I think that's the whole purpose of this webinar. Yeah. So
So shall I kick off with that?
you want to
Um,
go for the four reasons for high crew turnover and then zoom in on each one of them?
yeah.
For you ladies and gentlemen watching, Abby is beauty and the brains today. I'm just moderating. I'm doing what I always do in webinars, and Abby is going to kill it. Go for it, Abs.
I can't remember if I know all four. You can remind me where I fall down.
I know them by heart. You want me to name them?
All right, all right. But yeah, so as Ono was saying, essentially, we have spent 10 years building the world's largest membership of super yacht captains and crew. Over 15,000 captains and crew have attended our learning events. But really, we used the time over lockdown to ask ourselves, why are we doing this? The crew awards, that definitely feels right. Recognizing the achievements of crew, that feels good. But how can we work more on that? How can we really make a difference in the super yacht industry? So that drove us to our updated vision of the company of being the global leaders in skill development. But then what do we do with that? And so we asked a lot of captains, a lot of people in the industry, a lot of management companies, and there was one resounding answer that I think will be familiar for everyone, which is that generally speaking, the Achilles heel in super yachting is understood to be the lack of longevity or the high crew turnover on board. So it asks the question, why aren't crew staying in their jobs for longer? Why aren't people coming into the industry as a career? So we really wanted to tackle this. And there are some great initiatives out there. We've actually built some partnerships with companies that are doing fantastic things out there. But what we felt was super yacht owners, management companies, captains, they understand that longevity on board is an issue, that it could be a lot better, but they need a tangible, quantifiable, measurable solution. It can't just be we're going to throw more money at the problem, because that just doesn't fly. So we spent the last 6 months doing an analytical study of what that could. If we can understand the problem, we can work on a solution. So with that in mind, we looked at, let's see, on a job satisfaction,
Correct.
retention, retention rates.
Correct.
What are my keywords? I normally have a prompt. Go on, tell me.
Recruitment success rate
Success rate in recruitment, okay.
and total recruitment costs.
And the recruitment cost,
Yeah,
okay.
so just like summarizing quickly. So job satisfaction, total recruitment cost, retention rate, and recruitment success rate. And that research that brought out some interesting numbers. Do we want to do a little quiz for the audience and give them like 5 seconds to think about it, and then we give the answer?
Yeah, okay. Well, let's do it in order. So we said about
Job
job.
satisfaction. Excellent. Yeah.
So generally speaking, it would be interesting for the people watching now, what would you consider to be the main motivator, or what would create satisfaction for crew? So should we give 5 seconds for that to see what people say? What is the main motivator for people to work, stay on board in their jobs in yachting?
Okay, well, I'm counting down to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What's the answer, Abby?
Well, it's not money. I think
No? What a surprise.
you know, it's a really well paid job, and I think that there's this fallacy that that creates job satisfaction. Actually, that should be an you know, there's considered fair salary rates for every position on every
Mhm.
vessel, and that's a prerequisite. Um, what has come out of studies within yachting, but also in the commercial world globally, is that it all comes down to having a sense of purpose and feeling that there's a sense of recognition for what you're doing within the company or within
Yeah,
the vessel.
absolutely.
And super yacht crew, on the whole, often don't feel that they have that. They don't feel that they're recognized as the professionals that they are, or that they have a purpose or a trajectory.
Would that then also lead to, because the research also brought out this disengagement and demotivation costs, they would be related, right? That's what we think.
Yeah, if you're not satisfied in your job, inherently you're not motivated. So yeah, maybe you could explain a bit more on that. What happens when people aren't motivated in their jobs?
Well, I think we all know that feeling, right? Sometimes you just don't feel like it, or there's something happens within the team, or with your head of department, or with the captain, or with the guests, and that you just like. And I think we all have felt those moments that we're less motivated, and that's called disengagement and demotivation. And there's big studies from Gallup and AWU with around 100,000 of people working, not only on vessels, but on shore and outside of the industry. And it's an interesting number. And I think that number, so we do the second quiz question. What does the motivation and disengagement cost per crew member per annum? Is that like the next question? So what do you think disengagement, demotivation per crew member costs per annum? And
And
we're
while
going
it's about that, that idea is if you imagine a loss in productivity, the crew member turning up late for work, forgetting to do something they were told, yeah, anything that
more
would
management time you have to put in, all these drama things that more conversations with the team, inefficiency. You could think of everything, right? It's not only like, yes, turning up late is a big thing, but it's also all these small things that everybody notices with colleagues or with themselves that you might have sometimes, and when you're unhappy, not have that total job satisfaction, it becomes worse.
exactly. And so, what is that number, Anu?
Well, it is €2,500 per annum per crew member. And that's the corporate number. We think it must be higher in yachting because the average wages are higher. But let's stick to that number. Let's take science. We believe in science, don't we, Abby? Let's little pinch. We believe in science. And so that's huge. So if you've got 10 crew members on your vessel, that's €25,000 a year. If you've got 40 crew members on your vessel, that's €100,000 per year. And that's only the hidden cost of disengagement and demotivation.
Mm, exactly.
Wow. Yeah.
And then maybe then that moves us on to the retention rates, because
Yes. Yeah.
before we look at the costs, I think we need to look at the rates. So
Yeah.
I think the first question is here, you know, we're going to look at what's the average life of a crew member on board a super yacht. But first of all, let's have a look on shore. So when you look again at the corporate world, and we've gathered a lot of our data from the corporate world, because we should look at the expectations and standards of the owners, and be able to benchmark what we're doing. You know, in super yachting, we expect to be highest possible standards. So on shore, this is another question for everyone watching. What would you expect the retention rate of your team is per annum? So to put that into perspective, if you've got a company with 10 employees, how many employees would you expect to leave every year? And that would give you your percentage. Would it be 1 or 2 or 3 per annum.
Yeah.
And what's the answer, Arno?
Well, the answer is 90%. So 90% retention rate means 90% of employees do not change their jobs every year. So which means like, and that number is a bit lower than before, because like in the old days, it was 95 to 100%. You had a job for life. Now, obviously, you see with the whole Generation Z and new people coming in that's at 90%, but still. But it's also what companies want. They want to have that turnover. Because you want fresh blood in a company, but you don't want too much because there's only so much you can handle. And so 90% is the number that's average in corporate. And then that brings me to the answer, Abby. What do you think it would be in yachting?
Well, I can tell you it's not 90%.
Is it 100%?
No.
No, unfortunately. Well,
So
100% is not good either, by the way.
well, again, with our figures, we're being very conservative. So I'll give you the answer. So the average on a super yacht is 60%. We say 60 to 80% because, because we're lucky enough to know such fantastic crew and vessels through doing the crew awards. We know a lot of vessels that are 80% plus, but they're potentially not the norm. So you're talking about that crew, that vessel with 10 crew, 4 of them leaving every year. Obviously, there are different reasons. Some crew are seasonal, etc. But Karen Passman from Impact Crew did a very thorough study a couple of years ago, and she found that of junior crew in junior positions, 69, I believe it was 67 or 69% of them leave their job within 1 year. So it's an awfully high number, and that's very disruptive for the whole vessel. And actually, I know you were with me. We were speaking to a super yacht captain recently who had worked on a very prominent boat for a very prominent owner, and the owner had come down to get on the jet skis and go in the water, and he paused, looked around and said, I don't know anyone here. I don't know any of these deck crew. All the joy's gone for me. I don't really feel like getting out on the water with a bunch of strangers. So that human impact, I think, is there's an immeasurable cost to that. So we're looking at, say, a 60% average turnover rate.
And that scared us because we are a service industry. Everything we do is about the guest and the owner experience and the human factor. And that's not because we're Acrew and we believe in crew and we think crew are an amazing asset for the vessel, but we believe it's actually the truth. That human factor needs to be maintained. And so funny, all the captains we speak to, we say what we do, and mainly vessels that have low crew turnover like us most, which is quite odd because they need us less, right? Because they've got, but they did. So I think that those are the vessels that understand us very, very well. So, so we're making it our mission to increase the crew retention rates, right? That's like true skills, true communication, etc. But like let's not get into that because then it becomes a sales pitch. I think we're just sharing what we're thinking.
Knowledge. Right now, I think the purpose of what we want to achieve in this half hour is to really summarize and share what we've learned over the last 6 months, because it's important. And I think the individual facts, a lot of us already know them. When you put it all together into one picture, it becomes shockingly obvious that something has to be done if we're going to do right by the owner and if we're going to do right by the crew. We're all
absolutely.
Crew, but if we don't give them satisfying career paths, we can't expect them to stay in the industry. So what is, I think the final point then, Onno, is the cost of
I think we're going to recruitment success rate first, and then we'll go to costs. I think that makes sense. But before, guys, this is a pre-recorded webinar because we weren't available at the time. Why? Because we're prepping so hard for the crew awards. We really had to manage our time. So you can't respond to this. So if there's anything you want to say on this or get in touch with us, because then it's onno@acrew.com, or even better, Abby@acrew.com, because she is the brains. And so you get the best answers out of her. And so just to mention that, before people start chatting and don't get a response from us through this wonderful webinar. We're not used to pre-recording. Recruitment success rate. Another quiz question, Abby, you want to do that one?
On the success rate, well,
Yeah.
I guess I've got two questions here. So we looked at recruitment, how it is done by and large, the standard in yachting, which is obviously you take somebody's CV, you look at their qualifications, you get their references, you conduct a telephone interview, and you make your decision.
Absolutely.
Looked again back in other industries. What was the component that we found that made a huge difference from basing it on qualifications and experience? What factor could you add in to the recruitment process that would exponentially affect the value and the success of the outcome in the choices and the hiring?
Mm-hmm.
And what was that, Ono? What is the factor we're missing in yachting? By and large, not everyone.
Well, it's basically profiling and assessing. It's like that increases the success rate from a hire. I mean, those numbers are shocking. Do we want to already give it some thought? Like, what do you think that your normal success rate is? So if you hire someone, what would normally be the success rate? And then ask yourself the question, if you don't only look at skills, qualification, experience, but also add profiling and assessing to it, how much would that increase? And we have found it out ourselves, right? Within what we do, we actually in the last 6 months did it on our team as well, and the results are, well, huge. I must say huge. Not only, yeah?
So profiling is super interesting because a captain or a headhunter, a recruitment specialist, they could find the best chief stew ever, super skilled, super motivated. But is she the right fit for that team? Does she have a personality that will fit with the second stew and with the captain and with the chef who is very precise in what they want? Is she somebody that's a team player but can also work on their own? Is she process and focused and really appreciates good timekeeping? These sorts of things you can properly explore with profiling. As Ono says, when we took this to heart with our own team, as our team naturally evolved and grew this year, it was incredible. And I think that probably not a week goes by now, Ono, that we don't actually refer back to our own personality diagnostics and profile, and then how that affects the team. It's always positive. There's no bad profile.
And there's no bad profile. We're all human beings. We all got our flaws. We all got our characters and personalities. But like we found out, like for example, and I think for a vessel, that's very. I mean, you want some creative interior. You want people that can do good team parties and that like can decorate and that like make beautiful things. But you also want some people that are actually able to execute that, because all these creative people get stuck in being creative and then it doesn't happen. So within that team, you also want someone who says, okay, so and when are we going to do that? And who is going to pay for it? And when do we need to order all these things if we want to pull it off? So you need to have a balance in your team. So I think it's about balance. It's about having complementary skills and character traits for each other. I think that's what it's all about. But I'm giving the answer, recruitment success rate. So go for it.
This study that we looked at in particular measured the success rate of recruitment by analysing, talking to both the employer and the employee after a period of time, I believe it was a year, and measuring whether they felt it had been successful, were they still even in the position. And standard qualification only hiring achieved only a 30% success rate on average. So you've only got like a less than a third chance of that hire working out in the long term.
Yeah.
Whereas hiring, adding in the psychometric testing or profiling and personality assessing and understanding the dynamics of that person, how they'll interact with the team, took that up to Ono. What do you want to do the honours on that?
70 to 80%.
Yeah.
Which is basically perfect, because like you cannot reach 100%. And it doesn't mean that the 30% rate was bad, because you will keep that person because their qualifications are good. They can do the job, but you just notice that it doesn't work as well as you wanted it to work. You probably will say, well, if I probably wouldn't hire that person again. I'm happy with him or her, but I wouldn't hire again. I would rather have someone else if I would do it again. And I think that's what success rate is as well. It's not only, we're not talking bad hire, not talking people that are like you need to get rid of in 2 weeks' time. That's not the only thing we're talking about. What we
But it's
found
not with
out.
a match, like that example I gave before of the chief stew. She could be the best chief stew in the world, but if she doesn't fit on that vessel, she probably will end up feeling like she's not heard or not given freedom for her creativity, and then it doesn't work out in the long term.
Okay, I see that Raphael is there. There's one fourth topic and then we're finished. Is that okay? We'll do that in 5 minutes.
No, sorry, we need to close now. There's people already in the waiting room. It's been a great conversation, but I'm afraid we need to close it.
We clearly have more to say.
Yes, it's a bit unfortunate, but good luck with
Okay.
your...
Can you give us? Okay, we're sharing this as well. This part that we're doing now together with you. That's going to be the end of the webinar.
Yes, you want to say goodbye?
We want to say goodbye, and want one last message. We also looked at recruitment costs, and these are stunning numbers. A junior crew member costs 5,000 recruitment costs. Senior crew 8 to 10,000. A captain 20 to 30,000, and that includes accumulated costs, recruitment fees, repatriation, paperwork, induction, safety drill, uniforms, lost inventories, mistake breakages, whatever you can come up with. Just keep in mind, if we can get more crew longevity, if we can get better crew on board, just imagine what that would mean for the owner, for the guest, but also for the budget. Abby?